go off on my own on the reservation, but I'm also open about talking to you about anything about my business. If you want to ask me questions about my business, I'll tell you. So, this, I want to tell you what I like about this. It is in bigger font, but I put it all in black. So when you hand something to somebody, make it so it's easy for them to read. I'm not sure why there's two colors here, but I would go black. I would make, like, I'm not sure what this thing is up top. It's a different size, but that may be where you say, read as is, right? Across the top. And then hand it to them in big font. I would fill the entire page. I would do font as large as you can, right? Do not go to 2 pages. Do not do all caps. Make this easy to read. Always have a backup one if they bring it. And your intro is not your bio. Why? That's a question for you guys.
Because it's what's about, it's what matters to me and the audience, not about what we've done.
Right. So there is an assumption that I am an expert. They have probably sent and communicated my bio in some type of material. It was in the blast that went out. It was in the program brochure. It says that I had 30 years of the Coca-Cola. They don't need to hear that again. That's your time to begin to hook them in. Which is why this formula, because this is one of the formulas people have provided about could you, would you, do you, begins to get people in the right mindset. So the assumption already is somebody hired you to put you up there, they've communicated it, and that's why when they get up there, they want to look good, right? That's why they go off the rails and go, oh, I found Lisa, you know, she's got 30 years at Coke and she's so great and I'm so glad. Try to keep them to the script. They may do that, but let them do that on their own. If they start reading this and it's all your accolades, it sounds like, again, it's just how important I am. So that's just some thoughts about your intros. What else would you like me to talk about? Is there anything on your minds, or you want me to just kind of freeform it?
How to keep it real.
How to keep it real. I think to keep it real, you have to be, people like vulnerability and approachability. Nobody wants to hear how perfect you are and how great you did everything. Have you studied the thing called the hero's journey?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Success. Oh no, we were captured. Yay! Right? So as you think about the arc of your speech, keeping it real is I struggled. I didn't do well. I tell a story about in corporate America how people told me I didn't dress professionally enough to get the next level job. And I was like, and I got passed. And I had a 48-hour kitty party. Have you ever gotten that really bad feedback that just made you so angry? Right? But then I kind of came out on the other end of it. If you don't have anything that shows you as vulnerable, then you're probably missing an opportunity because people say, I can't be you, I can never be that perfect, right? And they tend to start to reject you. Or they say, nobody's that perfect. The other thing is being aware of your audience. What is important to them? I spoke to a bunch of computer programmers. Again, I told them I would only take a gig if they let me come the night before. And they were like, well, why would you want to go to this thing? And I was like, because I don't know anything about your business. And when I asked you questions about your business, Miss Meeting Planner, you couldn't tell me. And that's okay. But I need to go figure it out. And I said, I will come as an attendee of the meeting. And I went, and then I figured out these terms that they used. And I figured out some of the things that they struggled with. And one of the things was they were users of a certain technology, and the technology had been updated to version like 3.0, but 80% of the audience did not use the upgrade, and hadn't upgraded in like a year. So I saw the president of the company the next morning. It's like, oh, I was talking to your people last night. Sounds like nobody's using 3.0. And she goes, oh my God, I so know that, right? It's just a big, like, can I make fun of that? And she goes, well, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, good, because I'm going to make fun of it. I just want to let you know it's coming. And I got on stage and I started talking about that. And I was like, you know, the beauty of being a speaker is I've already cashed the check. So I can say this because she can't fire me. How you liking that 3.0 upgrade? And everybody started laughing. And I used terms that that when I talked about them, they felt like I understood more about their business. Then they came back to me with really technical terms because I had faked it well enough that I had no idea what they meant. And then I made fun of the fact I have no idea what that is. And I was like, so the wah, 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 right? But the realness is I don't portray something I'm not. I do try to find the familiarity. I do look at the audience and say, gosh, they're in their 20s. My example is not going to work. And you go back that night and you rewrite it. And that's why when you have 7 examples that you can use of these different people, you go, audience, nah, not a sports thing. Go to the next one. So that you can adjust. And you will build that repertoire over time, right? Because it forces you to be better. There's not a single time I speak that I don't go back and make some tweak about how to make it better or find an option I can adjust to another group. And I would say figuring out the right dress to align to your group, right? So sometimes you need to come in the suit and tie and that whole thing. Sometimes it's more casual. So again, the night before, my computer audience, I'm with a bunch of computer guys, so I'm trying to figure out what to wear tomorrow. And it's like, because I've been told all you guys will be in t-shirts. It's predominantly male. He's like, we are. I was like, so what should I wear? He said, are you good at what you do? And I said, I'm very good at what I do. He said, then you can wear a t-shirt. He said, if you suck, you should be in a suit. I got it. So the next morning, I came in a suit. And it was a long coat. And I got on stage and I made fun of the fact, I was like, oh, I hung out. I was like, had this pick to wear, and isn't this really nice? And I was like, but I realized you people are my kind of people. And I unzip the coat and I throw it off the stage and I've got a Prince t-shirt on. So this guy is sitting in the second row and he's like, that was good. But it gave me, again, I totally figured that out the night before about how to adapt and involve the audience. If you're on Being Real, if you were on, there was another event I went to, I was going to be the speaker at the end of the day. There were 4 speakers ahead of me. I looked at the titles of their speeches. It sounds like some of these people are going to say stuff that's similar to me. I made sure I sat through all of theirs. And when I gave the closing, I was like you heard earlier today from Bob, it's really important, right? So that also, I think, kind of links you in because you can do the callbacks. Oh, one of the things I thought you did well, too, was you said something up front and then you did a callback to it a little later. I can't remember what it was, but I think I wrote it on your notes. So you would use some let's say it was the sports analogy, right? The football thing, and then later you said, yeah, like I said in the football thing, right? But can you call back to other people, to people in the audience? Those are the ways I try to keep it real. And it feels like a conversation versus a presentation. You also have to figure out what your style is, right? There's the expert, I have studied, I have researched, and 8 out of 10 people don't get cavities when they use toothpaste, right? You know, that's the very authoritative, that's not my speech, right? My speech is very different. So my style needs to link to what my speech is. I hope that helps.
Actually, I have one more question that everybody else has one. Go ahead. If the art of practice, like when is practice too much practice? Like, you know, when you're getting ready for speech, that you think that came up. I don't want to say that once more because if I do, it's going to defresh the presentation.
That becomes one of those artists know thyself. I don't know what the right amount for you is, but you have to figure out what that, so what I do. I get my speech out, I read it, I edit it again. I tape it on a tape recorder after I say it, and then I will listen to it for a day or two on my tape recorder. So I get the running thing in my head. Now, I don't have a memorized speech. That's me. I know the 10 buckets I'm gonna hit, and if I don't say them exactly, it's okay, because you know what? They don't know what I forgot. They'll never beat me up about it, unless they go, oh, I forgot. Don't ever do that. Just when you remember it, add it in there, right? Or say, you know, on the next session, I can tell you more about this if you want to bring it back. But that's how I do it. Other people are index cards.
But do you memorize your intro? Do you?
No. Let me show you my intro, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So when I come on stage, it's like I have a fundamental belief that we are more alike than we are different. As a matter of fact, I'd like to prove that to you. Everybody stand up. It's been a long morning, right? I hope you get a stretch as long as you're up. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Because everybody has that computer hand. Okay. So I believe I have something in common with everybody in this room. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and if it's also true for you, I want you to sit down. So I got hired right off a college campus to the only company I ever worked for. It happened to be the Coca-Cola company. And I had the opportunity, I worked in sales. Anybody works in sales out there? Got a couple? I worked in marketing, and I worked in training and development. Okay, so you could have sat down. So now everybody sat down, so I would transition into something else, and it talks about, you know, gets more into my program. If you were the only one left, what's your name? Martha. Martha, come on up. So Martha is the only one in the audience left, or there's a couple. I bring Martha up. So what's your name? Martha. Hey Martha. So I got to find something in common for us. Okay. Okay. So I was a Girl Scout. Oh, there you go. I'm going to give it up for Martha. I brought 7 women on stage. One said I was divorced. They all sat down. Which we had fun with the rest of the time. But like literally the last one I did, there was one girl in the audience, a couple hundred people. She comes up and she's so nervous. She's handled like this, and I go, and we go, and I find something in common with her. And then I said, I really appreciate you coming on stage in front of all these people. This is a big room. She's like, it's a really big room. And I said, I'm going to give you a gift that I think everybody should get at least once in a lifetime. I'll be right back. And I walked off stage, and I left her up there. And I go down in the audience a little bit, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give Kathy a round of applause. In fact, a standing ovation. And everybody applauds. And everybody stands up, and everybody, because you can see how scared she is. And she starts to cry. And so I walk back up to her, and I put my arm around her, and I said, stand up tall and look at the audience. Very few people ever get this opportunity. And so then everybody goes nuts, louder, right? And then, and I thank her and send her on her way. And then I go into the rest of my thing, but I could call back to that experience later and how it relates into what I talked about. I found out later that girl was 21 years old. She found this conference online. She didn't know, she was from Canada, didn't know anybody in the States. Didn't know anybody at this conference, didn't really know what this conference is about, had talked somebody into sending her to it, and had come by herself. And she said, and I couldn't figure out what I had ever done that was important enough to deserve a standing ovation. And then I realized it. I asked to be here. So when I got all the feedback from that speech, testimonials, this is another thing that I do. So People will like give me cards afterwards or whatever. I go home and I try to find them on LinkedIn and I ask to link with them. And then if they link back and say yes, I was like, thanks very much for linking me. You just saw me present word of mouth is my greatest thing. If you would please write a recommendation, I'd appreciate it. So they write recommendations. So my recommendation list in LinkedIn is long. It's always got something current. And because they have written it in their words and put it in a public place, I can lift those and put them on my website without asking them. That's my justification. And nobody's ever come back that's on my website and go, I can't believe I'm on your website. So I do that, but everybody wrote about how Lisa took me from tears to laughter. I've never had another program where somebody cried like that. But you never know how, but everybody's involved and everybody, I've had the computer programmers go, oh, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you did that. And all of a sudden it's connections. It works with a huge group. It works with a small group. But that's like my thing.
You break it, like, you don't have to memorize, but you have a structure, obviously.
I absolutely have a
Can you
structure.
break down your structure, how you begin your talk?
So I begin my talk with, I do that exercise.
You stand-up exercise?
Yeah, this exercise, that's the beginning of my talk. Then I have, when there's no line at the ladies' room, I tell a story about how I was recruited off a college campus, and then how I go to my first Coke meeting, and I'm so excited, I'm dressed in press, I've got my pearls, everybody had pearls, none of them were real, but we all had them. And I go at the break to find the other women, to find the restroom, and I can't find it, because there's no line, because the men's line is forever. And then I talk about going in and finding a few women, and the joke was, you have this stall for the week, because there's so few of us. So I've taken people on that story, and then I introduced the idea of, I spent 30 years in corporate America. There's no reason you have to relearn what I learned. I'd like to share with you some stories. And then mine is 8 stories with a takeaway. And then my close is a call to action about you have a choice to make. You can either succeed because of or in spite of. In spite of is a long, hard road. I choose because of. What's your choice going to be? And that's how I close. So mine is very story heavy. My improv one that I do about how to drive creativity and collaboration starts with that introduction game. Then I talk about the power of yes and, which is part of I have 2 TED Talks. So it's part of my TED Talk. I play the yes and game. And then based on what people have given me that the goal is for the group, I introduce different games and we play games. And I've got a list of about 8 or 10 games. And based on how I see the audience interact, I trade games and I ask for takeaways. And then I was like, you guys are good. I've gone through all my games and I have a list of games on my phone that's like a really long list. I can find a new one. And then we talk about, well, what would you take away? What did you learn? So that's kind of my format.
Okay, it is 1:30 now.
Okay.
Lisa's got to leave. She's got to go to
I've got a funeral to go to.
So
Sorry.
yeah.
Thank you for having me. I hope thank you guys for volunteering and your work. And I don't get the advantage of seeing how far